out of Sacramento, California.
Woo! What you gonna do?
Better. Stronger.
Son of a bitch.
Faster.
Oh, yeah!
So, you know what I wanted to talk to you about today?
What's that?
One of the posts I was looking at, I thought was interesting.
Repeated videos like this. Your kids have to earn going into the museum on vacation? Or am I a hypocrite here? Just tell me. I mean, I am a jack shirtless dude. I own a supplement company. And one of my 3 children asked me to train with me, and it shows up on a video a few times a year. But this bothers me. Yes, I want to have some aspect of physical culture in all of my children's life because I want them to challenge themselves also mentally and emotionally, body, mind, and soul. But more importantly, as a parent, I want to empower them and show them that they can find and forge their own being. So online, when people say, oh, your kids are going to be the next greatest powerlifters, it actually bothers me because if that happened, all of them, that would cause me some level of introspection. What kind of environment am I creating for them to empower them, or am I trying to create mini-me's? Like I said, these kids look unhappy. You're trying to sell supplements. Just stop.
It's interesting because in some respects, I agree exactly with what Duffin's saying. You know, like, hey, don't push these kids, whatever. It's also tough when you're just looking from Instagram and you're not looking at this guy's total being. You're not there at the house with him. You're not. He lives on a farm. You know, he lives and he's actually provided a really good life for his kids. They don't have to worry about money. They don't have to worry about anything. And maybe they love it. That's another thing that we have to think about. And maybe they're kind of on board with what dad's doing. Mm-hmm. And in that case, I think we'd have to talk to the kids. However, if you are forcing the kid into it, when you, watch a movie like my movie Trophy Kids, which is actually available on HBO Max, if anybody does want to watch it. It's a movie I did with Peter Berg back in the day. And that was about obsessive sports parents that push their kids into sports. And it's when you push too hard, then the kids don't end up doing much of anything. Usually, they usually revolt on it. They turn away from it, and they don't do it. What's interesting with Mark and Andy and his kids is Mark's son is in the gym right now as we speak. I just walked by and I see him. He's in there lifting. And he's never liked lifting. He's never cared about it. He's never given it a second thought until about like a year ago. Mm-hmm. And he's sort of found it on his own. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he didn't have to look far. His dad's doing stuff every day around the house. Andy eats good. Andy gets up at 5:30 in the morning and goes swimming. So I think Jake and Quinn, they see that. And Quinn is now on the volleyball team, and she's getting really into it. But these are kids that did not play sports. They didn't play any organized sports. Like, usually 5, 6, 7, 8, you're in the T-ball league and you're in all the other stuff. Jake played a little bit of baseball, but he didn't really like it. And he just ended up kind of like bombing out of it. On the flip side, my other little nephews, April's kids, my sister-in-law's sister's kids, which are wonderful, wonderful little fun creatures, they play everything. They play baseball, they play volleyball, they play whatever. They play like a lot of things and are really involved in sports. But what's interesting is like they all found these things on their own. They've all come to them on their own. And so while I agree with what Chris Duffin is saying, is he trying to create mini-me's or is he just trying to get his kids to move? It's hard to tell the context of the video.
I have an opinion on this.
I would love to hear it.
All right, and I sort of finished formalizing this opinion maybe even just this morning. I saw the video that Chris was referencing in my feed. Mm-hmm. I follow the Liver King. I'm a fan, sort of, maybe, yes, obviously, if I follow him. And then I saw a recent one I saw today where he found a street vendor, and the street vendor hands him an ancestral meal, and he starts digging into some ribeye and liver right there in front of you, or whatever it was that he ate. And I came to the conclusion, I was like, okay, this solidifies this to me. This man is a genius. This is a character. This is a character. This was set. This is just a skit. And I take that same paradigm to everything he's doing.
Yeah.
I look at his chest and I go, I've never seen the guy bench press on any of his social media. I don't believe you can get that chest by wrapping 200 pounds of chains on your shoulders and dragging 1,000,000 pounds. And it makes me go, he's clearly doing traditional bodybuilding behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Behind the scenes, he's doing traditional bodybuilding. Behind the scenes, he's doing it. We have met the character of the Liver King. I doubt when he's home with his wife and his kids, he refers to himself in third person all the time.
He's like The Rock. Like we're in a world of professional wrestling here.
He's like The Rock before Dwayne Johnson. He's The Rock.
Yeah, I'm saying that he's The Rock.
Right.
He's The Rock on wrestling.
Right. The Dwayne Johnson is now this hybrid of The Rock and Dwayne in real life social media.
Yeah.
That is different than what the Liver King's doing. The Liver King is purely a wrestling character in your Instagram.
Just like, remember the guy that they had, we can actually go to him because we have access to this. Do you remember Robert Frank?
Yeah, I love Robert Frank.
So
not only do I remember Robert Frank, I celebrate Robert Frank, and I'm watching him as he's trying to get.
Yeah, he had some issues with health.
He had some intestinal.
It's Friday, International Arm Day, and before I fuck up the Guido pump for 20 fucking sets to get these arms so ripe, the chick with the fattest ass and yoga pants will beg to sit on my pipe. I want to talk about this shit that came straight out of the fuckboy dictionary. No, not November. Apparently, a bunch of beta-ass motherfuckers thought it was a good idea to go the whole month of November without dropping a load. And I don't give a fuck if you ain't spanking it or you ain't banging it. You ain't no fucking...
So that's basically Robert Frank. That's a character.
It's a character.
And it's okay. It's cool. And you know what? When you meet that guy in real life, he is so nice.
Yes.
And he's so cool. And his buddy Jimmy Triceps, which is a great name, by the way, is one of the most fun-loving people I've hung out with. Like at the Arnold, like I went to the Arnold and we hung out with them. They came here to the gym.
Right.
They were on the podcast. They were great. But you know what's funny is when Mark had him on the podcast, and this is not a knock on him in any way, but when Mark had him on the podcast, he was like, whoa, like I thought he was going to have a lot more like to talk about, you know? And he's like, I didn't realize like, he's really like, it's like that character personifies everything he wants to say. Yeah. And then like outside of that, that character is a pretty just normal dude. Yeah. You know, and it was like more like I don't think we were disappointed in that. You realize like, oh, that's really a character. Right. It's really just such a small part of his personality that he takes and cranks up to 10. And even if you talk to The Rock, he'll always say, I'm just, The Rock is Dwayne Johnson turned up to 10.
Right. I don't know. Well, and that may or may not be the case with the Liver King. We don't know. The Liver King might be the smartest, most charming man behind the character, or he might be a complete asshole, frankly. We don't know. I don't know his first name. I don't know what he's really like. I doubt that he makes his kids do burpees before breakfast and dinner. I think that was a skit.
It's a skit.
It made a point. And me as a father, I have 2 kids that are equally committed to being couch potatoes at various degrees. One kid will occasionally go outside and play. The other, he just does not want to. So we have him exercise at home.
I'll tell all you guys this too, everybody, and I'm talking about every single person in the nutrition space. Mm-hmm. I think they're all lying. I don't think, I think if they followed the diets that they're saying that the extreme, no carbs, I haven't eaten carbs, and actually Liver King actually is one of the only people that looks like it. But most of the people are like, I never eat carbs, and then like they're not in that great of shape. Like you would be in amazing sick shape if you didn't ever cheat on your diet and that's all you did. And so I just think that everybody's a little bit of a character. Like when I binge and I go to 7-Eleven in the middle of the night, which happens sometimes, it actually happened last week, go to 7-Eleven at midnight because I can't sleep and buy a bunch of candy or something. Do you think I ever post that on Instagram?
Right.
No, I've never posted that once, but I do it once in a while, and it doesn't really affect me that much, but it does affect me to the point where maybe I won't get as lean as I want to get.
But back to the Liver King, wow, it's worked. This guy's rise to fame has been very fast.
He looks amazing. Now let's get on to the next thing.
Yes.
There's a huge debate over whether he's natural or not. I would say, honestly, I don't care if he's natural or not. Do I think he's natural? In my opinion, he doesn't look natural at all. I mean, he looks like a steroid user. I mean, that's what they look like. Mm-hmm. Big, thick abs, big, thick muscles, really vascular. That's what steroid users look like. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly like that. Yeah. Does that mean that he's definitely doing them? No, not really. Does it mean that maybe he's done them in the past. Maybe, who knows, right? Like, it's really hard to tell. I do hate the message when it's a lie, when it's bullshit. Like, hey, I got this way, but like, there's no reason. I always say, like, I got this way from eating meat. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm on hormone replacement therapy. I take 200 milligrams of testosterone. I tell everybody that. I've always told everybody that. And it's funny because sometimes I'll post something on Instagram and people be like, oh, you didn't mention that you did testosterone. Well, I don't need to mention it in every single post, and neither does the Liver King, and neither does Mark, or neither does anybody.
Your bio is not required at every moment you make a statement on anything.
Exactly. But, if the Liver King really wanted to prove that he was natural, he would do what I asked Mike O'Hearn to do. And I'm actually going to try to hit up the Liver King and see if he'll do this, because I know that Mark wants him to come here. I would just love to take him to get tested in front of me. Let's go. Let's go get tested. Let's show the world. Because if you're natural, people are going to go crazy. People are going to be so, like, talk about a viral video. The director of Bigger, Stronger, Faster brings me to a USADA lab to have me tested to see if I'm really natural. And watches me pee in a cup. Which I don't really want to do that part. But, that's basically, like, that's the way you'd have to do it. Just like they did. I've asked other natural bodybuilders who are very prolific to do the same thing, and they've said no. They've all said no. And that's interesting, because when you say no to it and your reasoning is like, I've proved it before, and you really haven't, then you have to take a look at that and go, and at the end of the day, what does it really get you, right? I'll give you a great example. You're on testosterone replacement therapy, right?
Sure. Okay.
And so am I.
I think I know where this is going.
and so am I. But listen, and so am I. And neither one of us look like Liver King.
Not even close.
Right. So but that's what people need to know.
Sure.
Is that, like, it's not this magic pill. So whether he's on steroids or not doesn't really matter that much. His diet will be that much more effective if he's on steroids. It'll help him that much more to get in the shape that he wants to be in. I look at people like Carnivore MD, Paul Saladino. He said, the other day I got compared, I got blamed, whatever, not blamed, but I got accused of taking steroids when I was in Costa Rica, and Paul looks really good. Paul, when he was here at the gym, he was definitely a lot smaller than he is now. He was definitely, he wasn't as muscular. Let's just say that. Could he be on TRT? Possibly. He says that he's not. He's always been honest with me. I think he might tell us if he was or not, but we don't know, right? The one person that I really believe is Dr. Baker, because he's just like a total overall savage, and I think, like, what I like about Dr. Baker, and what I try to point to people with Dr. Baker, is like, this isn't a character. This is a real person. And that's the big difference with him. That's why I really, really admire him. I see, like, out of all the people that are influencers on Instagram, like, I relate the most to him. He really cares about people. He might get on there, like, and I might get on there too and be a little bit rude towards vegans, or, people that say, oh, grass-fed beef is healthier. I'm like, screw you. Like, I might shun a couple people here and there, but in reality, I care about people, and I want to make people better. And we're not trying to just, like, jam a supplement down their throat or do whatever. That to me is really important, that you really care. And I think Dr. Baker really sort of shows that he really cares about people as he's, trying to help them towards. But anyway, I think that if you could eat, like, I just say this morning, I woke up and I had leftovers from yesterday. I had a steak that I didn't eat the whole thing of for whatever reason. I don't even remember why. I think I might have just took too many hits of the vape pen and fell asleep. But anyway, I cut up a ribeye this morning that I had left over. It was like probably half a ribeye. And I made some pastured eggs with it, and I cooked it in bacon grease. And it's like, you couldn't really have a better breakfast. It was amazing. And there's I don't know. I tell people, eat eggs in the morning. Like, if you're a person that's, like, starving all day, or you're hungry all day, just eat like 4 eggs cooked in butter, And there's no way that you can't be full, like for a long, long time. Like it's crazy how satiating that is. And I think a lot of people like, yeah, I get up and I'll have like, one egg and they'll eat it with a bagel or something. And then, usually they don't even have the egg. They'll usually just have the bagel.
And for parents out there like me that are trying to get finicky kids to find more ways for protein, you can't beat scrambled eggs with a little bit of butter and bacon bits. It's kid proof. There's no kid that's going to turn down a bowl of some eggs and scrambled eggs and some cooked in butter with some bacon bits thrown on top. So
yeah,
it's a nice way to get some protein for your kids, which is hard to do these days.
I really think an amazing way to get protein for your kids, and I'm actually working with Mark, and I'm trying to get some other people on board with this. I want to create a chaffle company. I want to make chaffles, and I want to sell them in stores. I've been working on it for like 2 years, and I've been trying to find the right people to like make them. But it's like every time I go somewhere, like they won't use raw egg, they won't use real cheese. They want to use like shitty ingredients. I'm like, why can't I just press the waffles and sell them? But I understand there's all these food laws and there's all these things that I don't know. But if we can get kids, chaffles are amazing because you make them with eggs and mozzarella cheese.
That's it.
There's nothing else in them. They're amazing. And then when you put on what I actually want to do. This is a great idea. Somebody's probably going to steal it here, but maybe somebody will write us and get involved. I want to make flavored butters. I want to make like peanut butter flavored butter, maple flavored butter, chocolate flavored butter, and you spread that on your chaffles. Then you don't need the sugar-free syrup and the blah, blah, blah. It'll just all taste amazing because it'll all be in one.
Where does cream cheese measure up against butter with that? Just curious.
I've tried cream cheese on chaffles.
Yeah.
Like I've done stuff like I've made like the best thing to do is actually mix cream cheese with some sweetener like allulose, and it gives you like almost like a carrot cake icing flavor. Mm-hmm. That's really good on chaffle. Go online and look up Vermont sugar-free syrup. I'm going to show you the syrup that I use. That's it right there. Vermont sugar-free. They kind of sell that everywhere. It's $4.50. You put that on some chaffles with some butter. It's absolutely outstanding. Chaffles are just 1 cup of cheese and 4 eggs, 4 pastured eggs. I highly recommend pastured eggs. And if you guys go to Costco, they actually sell pastured eggs in like a huge thing,
So your chaffles are even a step above this anabolic toast we keep hearing, French toast we keep hearing
about.
It's
way better than that.
Way better.
Well, look, I wouldn't say way better because I'll probably get Doucette making a video yelling at me or something. It'd actually be great. But they're way better as far as like protein content and well, I would say they're way better for our diet, put it that way. Mm-hmm. Because if you actually think about it, what Doucette's has is high protein, high carb, and low fat. Mm. So if I wouldn't say better, they're for a different diet, put it that way. That's probably the best way to say it in all reality. It's not like, I make way better waffles than Doucette, Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I think his French toast idea is great. And I've seen people like Andrew that eat his French toast every day and they get lean doing it and they get in shape. Mm-hmm. And that might be more filling for people. But I don't think it's good for you and I. We tend to go, like, that's another thing is going to send you down that carb road, right? Mm-hmm. And like, am I going to eat? Here's the problem I have with Doucette's French toast. Are you going to eat that with hardly any fat? Are you going to not want to put butter on it? When I have waffles, I want butter. The nice thing about chaffles is like you can just smother them in butter. You can smother them in sugar-free syrup, and there's no issue. And you can eat as many of them as you want until you're satiated because that's the way the diet goes. And then you fast again until your next meal and eat again until you're satiated, and that's how the diet rolls. So it's really not based on a specific caloric input. If you want a lot of calories from chaffles, you will eat them. And if you don't really feel like having that much, you won't eat that much, right? That's why I really like these kind of carnivore diets, keto diets. I even don't really like a keto diet. Like I don't like an actual ketogenic diet per definition where you actually have to go into ketosis, have to check your blood ketones. My friend gave me a continuous glucose monitor and I haven't even tried it yet. It's like an $800 thing. And I haven't even like put it on because I'm like, when are my carbs going to ever, when is my glucose ever going to shoot up? Why do I even care about this? Like, why do I need this?
And if it does, it's not going to be a mystery.
Yeah.
If it's that one time a month or every couple months where you run to 7-Eleven at night and get a bag of Skittles, it's not like you need a
To know.
monitor.
Oh my God, those Skittles shot my blood sugar up. Like I'm going to know that it did. But you know what? It'll be interesting is there may be some other things I am eating that are like popping my blood sugar up that I need to be aware of.
Everyone always says diet soda. Does diet soda pop your blood sugar up?
No, it definitely doesn't.
Definitely does.
Nope. Watch Lane Norton's latest video. Lane Norton just did a video about it going crazy.
Okay.
Because Dr. Mark Hyman used to say that they would say that not your glucose, but they would say it would raise insulin. But there really is no proof that I know of. According to Lane, there's no proof because this is another thing I need a crash course on is like I don't know the difference. Well, I know the difference, but I don't really know the difference between glucose and insulin. Right? We're supposed to keep them both low, and I know that rises in glucose lead to rises in insulin. But when you have like this is the way shake, just a whey protein shake, your insulin spikes really high, like really high on whey protein. Just as high as almost as high as like white bread. So what's the difference?
So my understanding is that insulin is a hormonal response.
Yeah, it is.
To you eating something other than fat. Carb spikes it a lot.
Fat doesn't spike it at all.
Protein spikes it a little. Fat doesn't spike it at all.
And whey protein spikes it more than other proteins also.
Okay, so
it's interesting. But we want to keep our and I get it. I do kind of know that when your glucose levels are perpetually high, your insulin levels are usually perpetually high, and that's usually the problem. Like insulin resistance is like when you actually get to a certain weight, your insulin levels are just chronically high, and that's the problem. And the only way to bring them down is to keep eating less and less carbs.
Metabolic syndrome X.
Yeah, keep getting it down, right? But also just in general consuming less calories. Like, I don't know. I've learned so much by actually following the myths and believing in the myths and then having the myths busted on me. And that's why I kind of don't have a full education of all these things. Because I never went through and learned the actual nutritional science in a general manner like Lane Norton would have learned it. I learned it all backwards. I learned it all by having a bunch of myths thrown at me that I thought were true about keto and carnivore and all these things. And then I realized about half of this is true and half of it's, and it was for me to decipher what was true and what was not true. So my education was almost backwards. And that also comes from I am self-admittedly a contrarian, where I'm not a contrarian where I'm going to deny science or deny something's true.
Mm-hmm.
But when you tell me you can't get lean eating fast food, I'm going to go to McDonald's until I get abs just to prove it to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I've done that before.
Isn't there that old Billy Graham quote? I don't know why the wind blows, but I can see the results of the wind blowing.
Yeah.
So now we know the science of why the wind blows. But his whole point was, just because I don't know the science behind this, it doesn't mean I don't see it, I don't feel it, I don't see the results of the wind blowing.
Yeah.
And there's a mystery to it, as the quote goes on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the carnivore diet to me. I don't know exactly why it works. I don't understand the science behind it, but I see that it works.
Yeah.
And it works in my life.
I like the carnivore diet, but I am the biggest fan of what Mark and I created, the War on Carbs. And I even call it now the War on Carbs animal style because it's mostly carnivore. So it's mainly the War on Carbs animal style is eat mostly meat, right? And then if you really need to have something rather than saying in the summer, I would say my diet is meat and fruit as much as I want. As much as I want in the summertime because it's hot out. I get a lot of exercise. I'm outside a lot. I'm doing a lot. But for example, right now where I'm feeling a little sluggish and I want to get back on track and I've had carb creep where I've been eating a little bit more carbs than I want to, I think the best thing for me now is just cut out all the carbs for the next couple of weeks. Just cut them all out, get rid of them, get really lean again, and then stay and cruise through the summer like that. And then when the summer comes, if I commit to staying lean now, it'll be really easy to stay lean throughout the summer. But did you see the video that Greg Doucette put out about obesity being a choice?
I did.
Well, maybe we can just cut a clip into this.
Only one thinks it's somewhat a choice, little bit. The rest think, nope, not a choice. What do I think? Of course it's a choice. Coach Greg and his obesity a choice.
But what did you think of it? Because I was like, at first I'm like, oh man, like this is bad. Like, because he's like, it's a choice. You choose to be obese, And
Funny, I talked about it on. I talked about it. I might clip this out, but if you want me to, but I talked about it on my podcast, and it's just enormously reductive. Is what I said.
It doesn't help you.
It's enormously reductive. It doesn't help me, and it doesn't.
Is it insulting?
It is insulting. It is insulting.
Because in my opinion, what he was saying felt like a knife going in me, because I know you and I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he basically was saying, like, what you told me is like, and my mom has told me this so many times, that's why it just sticks in my head, is like, you think I want to be fat? You think I wake up in the morning and want to be overweight? Like, I've tried everything. She says it in Bigger, Stronger, Faster. And I've tried everything. And that's what I thought, is like, that nobody wants it. But what Greg is saying is like, you don't want it, but you're still choosing it. But are you choosing it? Or is it almost like alcoholism or drug addiction? Like if somebody said, you were a drug addict because you chose to be. And I'm like, I chose to take the pills at first, but it's because I had double hip replacement surgery. If you don't understand that, you're an asshole. Right?
And if you don't understand that you're an asshole is exactly right. I understand what Jocko Willink talks about, extreme ownership. I understand that, and it is a little bit of a slap in the face, but at least Jocko has some tact, some nuance, some and I'm not accusing of Greg of being uncompassionate, but I qualified it as I think he made a choice to be tone deaf for clicks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he monetized a tone deaf opinion because he knew it would be interesting. He knew it would get clicks. And I went and looked at his clicks. That video had at least a third more views than most videos that he had surrounding that video. So I think it was
he's basically being a hypocrite. More spews for more views.
I mean, he's
talking shit so he can get clicks.
I mean, more spews. I called it tone deaf. You know, I think it's not that it was completely infactual.
Yeah.
It's that it was so unnuanced and so incomplete that it did borderline being unfactual, and it was just sort of an asshole take on the topic.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about that. That's why you listen to, like, that's Ethan Suppley would have never said that. And not to say that I think that I'm not making any accusations of Greg of being incompassionate or uninformed or calling him an asshole. I just think that was an asshole video.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, look, Greg Doucette he's an amazing guy. He's done amazing. And again, Greg Doucette, just like the Liver King, that's a character.
Sure.
That dude is so nice. I bet you, like, if that dude lived around here, I'd hang out with him every day. He's a kind of guy that's like, he just seems like a super nice, down-to-earth guy that loves lifting and loves what he does.
And I commented on that as well. I recently commented on his post where I just said something, long story short, nice to see you featuring the compassionate side of your personality, great stuff. And I commented on that about a week and a half before this recent video. There wasn't like, I knew I would be later taking a small shit on his video, so I had to try to offset it. I didn't know that this obesity is a choice video was around the corner.
Was in the pipeline.
Exactly. So I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his. I've gotten great information from his channel. I brought up his anabolic French toast today before the topic even came up. I mean, I know that I'm a fan.
He's created his own little world.
He really has, and he's been great at it. But I think that he would be just as successful without that take. And I think that take it's a really unhealthy. It goes down that same rabbit hole of does fat shaming work? That's a fat shame of sorts. And I don't think fat shaming works. Maybe it works for a certain percentage of Americans or of people. But I would bet good money that most people, it only causes more harm.
Yeah. When you think about fat shaming, usually it's not something that, okay, so if I make a video where I'm in the gym and I'm like, listen, I used to be overweight. I used to be really in a lot of pain. I couldn't get out of bed. My hips hurt, whatever. Then I had double hip replacement surgery. Then I got addicted to drugs, got really fat and, did all that. And I lift a bunch of weight and people are like, wow, that's inspiring. To me, like, that's a better follow. That's a better, like, oh, I can relate. Like, I want to do that. And I think that you get better engagement and better compliance from people when you just show them, like, this is what I did, and just do what I did. You know, do you need to be commenting on people's choice to be fat? You know, like, do you even need that in your repertoire? You know, like, hey, it's your choice. You did it.
I understand, and I just, like, you know how we've talked about Dr. Baker before. I understand that there is an effort right now in society to normalize obesity, and I completely disagree with that effort to normalize obesity. I think we shouldn't be. It doesn't mean we need to shame or make obese people invisible in society, which is what I've heard people say before. But we also don't need to effort to normalize it or applaud it.
Yeah,
you know, and maybe normalizing it to some degree because it is the world we live in, but certainly not applaud it.
Mhm.
So,
yeah, but by no means is it, you know, like the whole, like you said, normalizing it makes people think like, oh, this is okay to just do, like, not pay attention to this, you know. But I also just think we don't have, I think the biggest problem really starts with parents and education, and what it starts with kids. You know, it just really does. It keeps going back to this. It keeps going back to, like, when do people get fat? When do they gain the weight? You know, and it's usually not when they're 25 years old and they already know about nutrition. It's like they start young, you know, and they start these bad habits young, and it builds up over time, and it gets to be really bad, you know. And you might not gain all the weight until, like, later on, but it's like, it's the habits. It's the habits of, like, eating this, you know, sugary cereals and drinking the sugary sodas. And, you know, it's amazing that, like, Mark and I have a friend named Cheap Josh. Cheap Josh, he's an amazing dude. He's pretty jacked. He's in the Air Force. Like, he used to work at Sharky's with us. Like, he was a bouncer, and Cheap Josh was always, like, jacked, and he had, like, a little tiny waist. He was built like a bodybuilder. And we'd be like, you're always so puffy and soft. Like, what do you eat? And he's like, well, you know, and he's telling us, like, I eat a lot of protein and blah, blah. And then I found out that he drinks regular Coke, and he drinks about a 2-liter of regular Coke every day. And he didn't even know about, like, just switching to Diet Coke. And I'm like, dude, you got to, like, cut the carbs. Like, at least cut the soda. Like, let's just cut out the soda. He cut out the soda, and he got, like, super lean.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But it was like, it was just, like, simply not knowing.
Yeah.
You know, simply. And I think that that's, like, most of our world is like, oh, I didn't know you could just do that.
Well, and that's the epidemic of bad parenting that we're dealing with right now, because if you don't know any better as a child, you don't know any better. I mean, and again, I tell you, we were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. My Randy came out of the womb thin. He's always been thin. My Ryan came out of the womb chunky. He's always been a little chunky. Ryan does not enjoy being active, and people can presume we haven't efforted to change that opinion. Their presumptions are wrong. So at the very least, we got Ryan a little rower. We have a rower in our house. We're like, all right, buddy. Well, at least, you know, while you're watching your favorite.
Are you the Liver King now?
Yes. Liver King.
See?
Because I have my kid. Well,
you're encouraging it. You're not making him do it.
I make him do it a few days a week. Because if I didn't make him do it a few days a week, he would do it 0 days a week. It's just the reality. Yeah. You know, and I'm not.
And I think with parenting, there's a fine line between pushing and not pushing enough.
Well, ultimately, like in most things, it's how are you doing it?
Yeah.
I don't get over him with a whistle and a chart and tell him to push, and you know, I'm not trophy kidding his rowing experience, but I'm like, all right, dude, well, you know, put an episode of something you want to watch on your cell phone. And I know that it's not an optimal situation. My youngest has found neighborhood friends. My youngest is going outside and playing with neighborhood friends. And of course that's a better solution.
The other kid's more introverted, right? The older one?
Yes.
He's more introverted. He doesn't really want to go out and
he doesn't have kids of his age in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, and we've efforted to go to the park every day and all this sort of stuff. We've you know, but then the next thing you know, it's winter and it's raining and you don't go to the park, or it's summer and it's 110 degrees outside.
And then he's also a picky eater. Like, he won't eat.
Yeah, he's
Now, let me ask you what you think of this. Here we go. Right?
Let's
Ready?
hit him.
Are you ready for the rabbit hole?
Hypocrisy, buddy.
How do you feel about the Liver King? So he was on Paul Saladino's podcast.
Oh, really?
And he was talking about how he switched his kids over. His kids were like ADHD. They had all these problems. They couldn't focus. They were doing terrible in school, all these things. And when he learned about ancestral eating, I'm not sure how long ago this was, but when he learned about ancestral eating and he decided to like switch over to all that, he realized like the whole family's going to do this. And he said basically for 3 days, his kids didn't eat. They wouldn't eat. They wouldn't eat anything that he would put on the table. And he said, no, we're not eating that stuff anymore. We don't have that. And so basically his kids went 3 days on like a hunger strike. And the dad, and he didn't give in. He just said, you know what, you're just going to eat what we eat, and that's it. That's all we got. And they didn't eat for 3 days. He said, like, I think he said one of his relatives wanted to call Child Protective Services on him. And he just said, you know, look, this is the way we're doing it here. And that's it. And now his kids all eat good. I'm like, that sounds a little harsh. That sounds a little bit more than a character, right? Like more than being a character.
I mean, I've gone through.
Then again,
I've gone through stints where
I kind of agree.
I tried younger when Ryan was younger. I tried forcing him to eat healthier foods. He would put them in. He would just hold him in his cheeks for hours. I mean, him and I have both shared tears over me being too forceful.
You're having a standoff.
The standoff of eating better foods and you know, that takes a unified front. That means that both parents at home have to be completely in agreements with it. And yeah, he took a gamble on traumatizing his kid and giving his kid even more psychological food aversions for sure. Sounds like maybe the gamble paid off.
You know, in my opinion, though, at the same time, like if these kids, because of what he did, if these kids eat good for the rest of their life, it's only going to benefit them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not going to be like, oh, like look, now they eat good. Now they're going to live longer.
Listen. Parenting's interesting. Parenting can be the easiest thing you ever did or the hardest thing you ever did. It just depends on how much you care to put into it, and to output a healthy-minded, optimistic, forward-thinking, you know, ambitious, healthy-bodied child is not easy.
No.
It takes a hell of a lot of effort to parent well.
Now, let me ask you a question. If there was no such thing as other kids, you lived with your kids, with your family, at home, you controlled every decision. There was no like going to school and knowing that other kids have Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Just if we lived out on a homestead out in the middle of Montana.
Yeah, it'd be different, right? I mean, I think that's like a big part of it. Is like, it's so interesting to me though. It's like, well, everybody else is doing it. Let's just do that. And I don't know. Again, my contrarian side comes out, and like the Bell side comes out, going like, "No, don't be like everybody else."
Ryan's school serves a slice of pizza every single day. A slice of pizza with applesauce every single day. That is one of their lunch options.
Yeah.
You want a slice of pizza today? You know, I try to talk my kid into not eating a slice of
pizza. And I ate all that stuff
day.
growing up,
right?
But I wish I didn't. Like honestly, like my thought process is like, man, I wish my parents would have starved me, like in a weird, twisted way. When I said, it sounds like he's more than a character, but at the same time, I kind of wish, like, maybe I wish my dad forced me to not eat for 3 days. So I learned about food, and I learned how to not be so addicted to it.
He's more than a character, so he is not only the character, but clearly, as we talked about, he's clearly bodybuilding behind the scenes, right? You don't get that chest without bodybuilding. He's almost certainly taking in more than just raw meat, taking in some enhancements into his blood work one way or the other.
Well, it's interesting. He sells supplements that like, so he sells ancestral supplements, and that I don't think he even takes because he just eats liver. It's like that's interesting too. Well, why wouldn't you just take your supplements and eat steak? Because that's so much better. It's so much better.
Yeah.
Like, why buy the supplements? You know what I mean?
Right.
Why not just eat the liver?
Right.
I guess the whole thing is like most people won't eat liver, so the idea is like, which is so funny that all these people sell this shit, because before anything with carnivore, before carnivore had any sort of commerce behind it, commercevore we should call it, where it became commercevore, where everybody's like trying to sell you a product, right? Before it came that, I was buying really dirt cheap desiccated liver capsules on Amazon, and I would get like a 500 count bottle like this big, and it was like $9. It's crazy how cheap the stuff is, and that you can still get that, and it's the same thing as all these other guys are saying.
Not with but it doesn't have that.
Doesn't have the marketing.
Doesn't have that fancy logo on the bottle.
Doesn't have a beard.
It doesn't have that fancy logo on the bottle, and that's what people often buy.
And so I was taking those, and it's funny because like I remember when I first met Dr. Saladino, I was asking him like, hey, I take these liver capsules. Is that is that any good? And everybody was still unsure of it. Like nobody had a good answer for me. They'd be like, I'm not sure. There's never really been any studies done, and blah, blah. And I still don't think there is. I still don't think, because I'm still wondering, like, is it good to even take organ supplements? Like, I don't know. I've never seen the studies on it compared to eating whole food,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know how it works. Supposedly it does, but
Yeah. Neither do I.
Where's the science?
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, I think that's good for today.
Yeah.
Just, chatting about all this stuff, and we'll run through another one next week. I'll pull up a bunch of videos. What I want to start doing is finding a bunch of videos we can go through and really start plowing through like a bunch of videos and commenting on like a lot more stuff, but we just need to get up to speed on our stuff, which we're almost there.
Yeah, we were close.
We're close.
We'll get there.
We're close, gang.
All right,
so thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon.